I'm Kristen Young. I'm going to introduce myself in a minute in a future slide, but I just wanted to welcome everybody to Wellness Week with Herren. This is the webinar Building Wellness Competencies as part of the webinar series through the Herren brand. Hold on one sec. I'm trying to go to the next slide. There we go. So this is the webinar series we have. I just wanted to introduce it to everyone in case you get a chance to hop on. There's still 3 left. There's mine today. Then there's a Peace Love workshop at 3. And then tonight is Why Wait with Heather Herren and Lori McCarthy. I'm really excited for all of them, and all of the other ones. If you missed them, don't worry. Most of them will be up on our YouTube channel for you to catch up on after the fact. I put the website at the top of the screen if anyone is interested in checking it out and any other activities we have going on. This is a really exciting week for us here at Herren Brands. So there we go. So who are we? We're the Herren Project. We're a nonprofit organization. We offer free resources and support for people struggling with substance use disorder. We have prevention programs for people who struggle with substance use disorder and for our young people. We were founded in 2011 by Chris Herren. He played for the Celtics, struggled with a substance use disorder himself, has now been sober for 15 years. Yay, very excited for him. And because of him, we have saved many lives. His story is amazing. If you don't know it, please check it out. You can find all the information on us and the other Herren brands at, I believe it's herren.com. Herren Project specifically is herrenproject.org. So that's us. Who am I? I'm Kristen Young. I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker in the state of Massachusetts. I have a private practice here on Cape Cod. I'm also the clinical director for Herren Project. I've been here almost a decade. Best decision I ever made to come to this organization. I often like to say I didn't come here because of Chris. I didn't know Chris. I didn't know his story. Somebody asked me if I potentially wanted a job, and once I started looking into it, I was amazed. It's a great organization, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. I got an MSW from Boston University in 2009. I've worked in the field for, actually, this is an old slide now, so I've worked in the field much longer than I want to admit because I will definitely date myself. I specialize in addiction, recovery, trauma, mental health issues, and I work a lot with adolescents. Okay, so that's me. What are we going to do here today? We want to understand the concept of wellness. We're going to talk a little bit about the wellness wheel and its 8 dimensions. Then we're going to focus more on emotional health after that, just because that's kind of my thing. The rest of it you can find information on, definitely, on the World Wide Web. The internet is great for that, but we're going to focus more on how to stay well emotionally in this webinar today. So we're going to hopefully know the difference between a maladaptive and an adaptive coping strategy. So I'll get more into that if those words seem big and you're not quite sure what they mean. I will explain. We're going to identify one adaptive coping strategy used every day. That's just a positive coping strategy. We're going to talk some about boundaries because anyone that knows me knows that I have a passion for boundaries. I think they are a big part of what helps keep us well, and so how they relate to self-care. We're going to learn 3 common evidence-based adaptive coping strategies. That's big words. So we're going to practice 3 different coping strategies today. We're going to do a mindfulness one. We're going to do just a general breathing exercise, and we are going to finish with a meditation. I hope you guys will stay with me. I know a lot of people roll their eyes when you talk about meditation, but it's evidence-based. There's science backing how all these things work and can help us manage stress. And the goal is for us to be well and hopefully at some point be able to actually be happy. So I hope you'll stay with me through the guided meditation, or if you're not in the place to do it right now, maybe once you get the recording, come back and do it. And also would love feedback on that after if you like it or if you'd like to see anything different. Okay, so those are our objectives. So let's start off by looking at the wellness wheel. This is sort of a newer concept to me. I just started looking at it recently. I used to think that there was more 3 dimensions. Now I'm learning that there's way more. So this encompasses 8 dimensions of wellness. Okay, so spiritual, emotional, occupational, intellectual, environmental, financial, social, and physical. So we need to be doing things in all of these areas, right, in order to be able to feel good and to have a quality of life. So what are all these things? What do they mean? So occupational, ability to explore career options and pursue opportunities that bring joy. I think we all know at this point, or if we're in our adulthood, that we spend more time at work than we do at home. So if we don't like what we're doing, it's hard to feel satisfaction in life, right? The hard part about this is that we don't always have a choice, especially in today's world where things are getting more and more expensive. We got to pay the bills. So, but it is an area that if we have choice that we need to look at and try to find something that does bring some joy into our lives. I'm lucky enough to have a job that I love, and I know it does make a big difference. So, spiritual, not to be confused with religion. They are not the same thing. Okay. So, those of you that find spiritual health through religion, that's awesome. Like, totally support that. I think that's great. But you don't necessarily need religion in order to explore spirituality. We can find spirituality in nature, we can find it through human connectedness. We can find it in so many other areas. So basically, it's just having a sense of purpose and meaning in life. So finding it can be kind of tied into occupational, right? Like I feel like part of my spiritual health is through what I do for work, where I get to help people every day, and that really gives me meaning and a sense of purpose. So that's so those two are kind of connected, right? I also find my spirituality, oftentimes I find and experience more when I'm in nature. So that's another way we can explore and experience spirituality. So intellectual encourages creativity and ways to expand knowledge. So just never stop learning, right? I kind of subscribe to that. I never want to stop learning. I love it when I learn new things. Really keeps the brain working, and it just can help with that having a sense of purpose and understanding the world. Physical. I think we all kind of know about this one. Doing what you can to help care for your body, moving your body, eating well, making sure that you're taking care of your health and you're doing preventative maintenance on your body and your health. Environmental, occupying a pleasant, stimulating environment. So, and I can tell you from experience, when my house gets cluttered and dirty, I don't feel as well, right? So, trying to keep our environment up, at least giving ourselves a space where we can escape to that feels calm, that feels safe. Um, Social, developing a sense of belonging and having a support system. We know at this point that when you're talking in terms of substance use disorder, that oftentimes the main symptom is feeling disconnected from the community around you, right? So people often say the opposite of addiction is connection and connectedness. So this is really an important one. As humans, we are social beings. Now, some of us charge our batteries alone, some of us charge our batteries around people. That is the whole introvert extrovert debate. But most of us really need some sort of socialization and social support in order to be able to feel healthy. So that doesn't mean everyone needs to go out to parties and hang out with lots of people, but just one or two people that we feel safe with as a support system that we can go to when we're struggling. Financial, having enough financial resources to comfortably manage expenses, pay debts, and have a long-term financial plan. I think it is almost impossible to be happy if you don't have enough financial resources. So, our financial health is really important. This doesn't mean typically once you have enough to pay your bills and again, it's all about safety and feel safe in the world. Know you have housing, know you have food. Anything above and beyond that is just kind of icing. It doesn't really bring much more contentment in life, but a lack of can really destroy happiness. So, and emotional, that's what we're going to focus more on today because, again, I'm a therapist, so this is my gig. Ability to handle life stressors and adapt to change. Let's see. What do we got next? Okay, so where do we start with this? Where do we start with trying to get healthy, with trying to manage our emotional health? It's a hard world we live in today. There's lots of scary stuff going on. There's lack of resources for a lot of us. It's really gotten, I mean, I think it's always been tough to live, but right now in particular, there's a lot going on, right? So, where do we start? We have to start with ourselves. We have to start with taking care of self because guess what? We can't control anybody else or anything else. So, self care is a multidimensional, multifaceted process of purposeful engagement strategies to promote healthy functioning and enhance well being. So, that's a lot of big words again. Um, but what it means is that in order for us to feel good and have some contentment in life and to be emotionally healthy, we have to take care of ourselves. It's an active practice. It's not just some people wake up in the morning and they feel good and they're happy. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. It's more we have to put some work in, and it's a daily practice in order to find happiness, which also, by the way, it's happiness isn't a destination, it's a practice. It's just like learning to jump rope or running or learning to drive a car. It's something you have to regularly practice in order to attain. We all start from a different place, right? So having not a lot of like physical activity as a child, when I wanted to start running, there were a lot of people my age that were way further ahead. There were a lot of people who were genetically further ahead, right? Um, but that doesn't mean I can't catch up or I can't also reach goals based on how hard I work. It's the same concept. We have to put in energy in order to get the result back, okay? Both for self care, emotional health, and that elusive happiness. Okay, so next, this is the gold standard, right, for 12 steppers, the serenity prayer. I took the God out just because there's a lot of people out there that don't resonate with that, but you can certainly add it back in if it does resonate with you. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I put this in here because we should all be saying this. A lot of times we get the most stress and anxiety from worrying about things that are completely out of our control, right? So, what somebody else is doing, whether it's our child, our parent, another loved one, a spouse, we're in it worrying about their outcome based on the choices they're making. We have no control over that. So, part of becoming emotionally healthy is also learning to let go and learning to know the difference between what is in our control and what isn't in our control. So, I would encourage all of you to find this prayer, learn this prayer. And when you catch yourself doing it, say it to yourself, right? Because there are many things that we're worrying about every day that we can't change. It's not a worthy practice. It's only going to bring you sadness, less happiness, and less contentment in life. Okay. By the way, that picture's from Hawaii. I just recently got to go talk about self-care. It was a bucket list trip for me. Doing things like that and seeing other cultures and other areas can be huge for our health. Okay. So I also, in the terms of talking about general physical health, I want to talk a little bit about resiliency because resiliency is really what we're trying to build, right? Resiliency, and I'm going to read the definition, is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. Okay, so we all have difficulties. I love it when a doctor sends somebody to my office in my private practice and the person shows up and I ask them like, "Hey, why are you here?" And they say, "Well, my doctor says I have to remove stress from my life." And my reaction is always, "Oh, awesome. Does he know how to do that? Because if he does, we could make millions." Life is stress, stress is life. They are the same thing. They're always going to come together for all of us. Okay, we're always going to have periods of lower stress where we coast and things are awesome. And then we're going to have periods of higher stress where we're really struggling, sometimes struggling to get out of bed in the morning, could be depression, anxiety. And by the way, those are emotions. I'm not necessarily talking about when somebody has the diagnosis. Okay. I always like to say that because I feel like we've gotten to a place in our society where anxiety and depression have become like pathologized, like they're a diagnosis and they're not something that all of us struggle with all the time. We all struggle with both of those things. It's normal human emotions. Okay. And medication's a great tool. I am all for medication when people need it, 100%. But we also need to learn other strategies in order to manage those very normal emotions, right? So we don't always need to go to medication because that's really the way to be able to. I used to work with a psychiatrist that said life isn't about the bumps in the roads. It's about learning to navigate around the bumps in the roads. So that's some of these techniques we're going to be talking about today. Okay. So, what is stress? Really important that we understand how this works. And I'm a neuroscience geek. I have a bachelor's degree in neuroscience, so I love the brain. Spend a lot of time studying it. I'm sure I'm not fully up to date on all the recent happenings, but I can definitely define stress. So, basically, when we talk about stress, anxiety, we're talking about the fight or flight response, which I know a lot of you who have went through, biology in high school probably remember talking about that. And it's basically when your brain perceives a threat, it's going to send out signals to the rest of your body, telling it to adapt to survive the stressor. So this system developed for our survival. We would be dead today as human beings if we didn't have it. Okay. It developed, though, at a time where our stressors and our threats were lions in the woods. Okay. So, what happens is amazing when you think of a lion in the woods. You see the lion, there's the threat. Your brain says, oh my God, we could die. It shuts off the outside of your brain, which is the thinking part, because if you start thinking about the lion, it's going to get you, it's going to eat you. So it turns on just the part of your brain, the emotional part of your brain that just reacts and acts. Okay. This is why, by the way, any of you that have dealt with testing anxiety, this is why you can know all the information, walk in to take a test, and it's all gone. Okay. It's because your brain has perceived that test as a threat, and it's doing everything it needs to do for you to survive that threat. Okay. And those things are, like I just said, those brain fog, because it shuts off the thinking part of your brain. It's going to want to empty your stomach because the more weight you have, right, the slower you're going to be if you have to fight or flee, right? So it's going to go one way or the other, up or down. It's going to increase your heart rate and respiration because it wants your muscles to be really strong in the event you have to run or fight, right? Your pupils are going to dilate, so sometimes you can't see as well, especially close up. That's in case you have to run, so you're not going to run directly into a tree, right? So all of these things are happening in our bodies. Our bodies are designed to have this mechanism only exist for like maybe 5 minutes, if that, probably more like 2.5, because in that amount of time, the lion either gets you or it doesn't. And then it's over, right? So when we're talking about testing anxiety, does this work as well? 100% not, right? Because a lion is an actual threat, a test is a perceived threat. It's not actually going to kill us, but our body is reacting as if it is, right? So when we talk about stress and the effects on the body, right? And what do we talk about? We talk about brain fog. We talk about stomach and gastrointestinal issues. The old term, I pooped my pants, right? That, like, I was so scared, I pooped my pants. That's where this comes from, by the way. So all of these things are not helping us in today's world, and they are more consistent. They don't shut off after 3 minutes. Our bodies aren't really designed for that. So that is part of the reason why we see stress-related illnesses, right? So I just want to make sure that we all understand that, because I think it can make a huge difference. So my people I've worked with that have things like testing anxiety or generalized anxiety, when they know what's happening in their body, because fear also feeds on itself. So if you have fear about the test and then your body starts to react and you're like, what's happening in my body? Now you have more anxiety, and which then creates more anxiety, which can end up in a panic attack, right? Panic attack happens because your body wants to run or fight, and instead you're sitting in a chair or driving a car, right? And then it all feeds on itself and you think you're dying, which then creates more anxiety. You see how this works? It's like a cat chasing its tail, right? So understanding that can be the first step in how we can help, manage it emotionally, right? Okay, so Now we're going to segue over into more the how. And by the way, I didn't say this at the beginning, but if you have any thoughts, especially the next two slides, I'm going to ask you for thoughts. But if you have questions, you can feel free to put them in Q&A. I may not be able to get to them while I'm doing the webinar. I might not. It depends on what point I'm at, but I will definitely try to get to them all at the end if you have questions. So that's the Q&A. The next two slides, I am going to ask you to put something in the chat if you have anything to add. So right now we're going to talk about how do we take care of ourselves? Okay, not how should we. We're not talking about the optimal yet. We're talking about how do we, right? And a lot of us have some really positive coping strategies. That's the next slide. Those are the adaptive coping strategies. Adaptive means positive. They're helpful. They don't have any risks associated with them. They don't have a dark side. First, we're going to talk about the maladaptive coping strategies. So these are the ones that make us feel really better, a lot better in the moment, but long term have a lot of negatives associated with it and cause us actually more pain oftentimes in the long run than they do help us in the short run. Okay, so obviously substances, use of drugs or alcohol, great coping strategy. I am never going to tell anybody that having a drink does not make them feel better, or using a drug, it does. It removes all the negative emotions. It stops that stress response right in its tracks. Okay, it removes feelings, so it will make you feel better in the moment. But what happens long term? There ends up being more stress. There ends up being more things to be stressed out about, more things to hate yourself for, right? So it's maladaptive. It's a negative coping strategy. It's not good in the long term. For a lot of people, it actually ruins their lives, which we know, right? So same thing can be said for overeating, undereating, long-term health. That's not a positive. That directly affects the physical health that we were talking about earlier. Arguing with a loved one. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I'm stressed, I can take it out on the people around me and the people I love. That is a negative coping strategy because what happens to my social connectedness that we talked about earlier? People are eventually going to leave me, right? So have to definitely be aware of that and find another outlet as opposed to that. Self-harm is another one. A lot of people are afraid to talk about self-harm or don't understand self-harm. Self-harm is just like drugs and alcohol, it actually creates changes in the brain that you release chemicals that take away some of those bad emotions. So self-harm is actually very addictive, and that's the reason why people get caught in it. And another one, it's got a lot of negative effects in the future, right? It can really ruin your life and make things hard for you long term if that's your coping strategy. Risk taking behaviors in general, sexual promiscuity, all come with some negatives in the future. So here's your part. If you have any others that you can think of or anything that has derailed your life a little bit, put it in the chat. I'd love to hear any others so we can kind of touch upon. I got to get my chat up. Focusing on others' needs and not addressing my own. 100%. That's called, we like to call that codependency, right? That term that comes with so many negative. I don't think of codependency as negative. I'm a card carrying codependent. I find myself to be a fierce lover and supporter of the people I love. But sometimes I can do that to my own deficit and to my own demise, right? And that is 100% a negative coping strategy. Overworking, there's a lot of people, and the person that said that, you are definitely an overworker. I know you. We can definitely get sucked into our work to avoid having to feel other things, negative consequences in the future for that. Sleeping too much, yeah, another one. And let's talk about sleep for a second, because that's a tough one. It's kind of like food, where it's something you 100% need to do. But if there's too much or too little, it can be really negative. So those are really hard, right? Those are really tough ones to be able to manage if that's your coping strategy, because it fits in both categories. It fits in the maladaptive and the adaptive coping strategy, right? So those are usually take us, if those are our coping strategies, sometimes we have to really work on those, maybe even with a professional to help us. Binge watching Netflix. Yep. Another one. Again, that can sometimes be positive, but too much of it, you're not gonna be connected to the world. You're not gonna be getting your stuff done. And we also know that that's changing our brains, right? A lot of these screens and this entertainment, it's creating constant entertainment. It's creating us, we have difficulty relaxing truly or truly disconnecting. It's giving us difficulty sleeping and all kinds of other maladaptive um, long-term things that we struggle with. Okay, so awesome, you guys. Thank you so much for participating. It makes it way more fun. So next, the adaptive coping strategies. These are the things we want to practice. These are the things that help us feel better. They don't have long-term consequences. They're just positive. A lot of these are the things that we roll our eyes at and we're like, oh God, because we know it and it's hard to start. And I also want to make sure that I highlight that word hard to start, that phrase. They're actually not hard to do, they're hard to start. And I try to remind myself all the time of that. Most of these things, I tell myself I only have to do for 5 minutes because I can do anything for 5 minutes. And if I get 5 minutes in, I'll usually do 10 or 15. But even if I don't, 5 minutes is better than nothing, right? So the great part about these is like, please don't, if you decide all of a sudden you want to meditate, don't do a 45-minute meditation to start. Start with 5 minutes. Just do 5 minutes, right? And if you want to do more, build up. And then when you get to the place where you've hit a wall and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to go to the gym anymore. I'm tired, right? Because a lot of us have a tendency to do all or nothing with these things. So I'm either at the gym for 3 hours or I'm not going to do it at all. So if I don't have the energy for 3 hours, I don't go at all. Moderation. We're looking for moderation. 10 minutes. I'm just going to go to the gym and I'm going to do 10 minutes on the elliptical. That's all I have to do, right? That will keep you consistent. I have a coworker, Sean McMillan, who is amazing at reminding all of us that consistency is key. None of this it doesn't have to be 4 hours of any of these things, just 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, so finding a good therapist or life coach. I am a therapist, so of course I'm going to promote therapy, but I can tell you it's been a lifesaver for me many times over the course of my life. Even as a therapist, I need a therapist. We're trained to help people through the difficulties of life. We're trained to teach you coping skills. We're trained to help you untangle your thoughts. It's really a beneficial practice. Same thing with a life coach. I am not against life coaches. There are some awesome life coaches out there. So if therapist isn't for you right now, find a life coach. They've got some great ideas as well. Create a positive support system. We talked about that earlier. That's that social health piece, right? That we touched upon. And this doesn't mean, again, you have to have 25 friends. Find a few people that you feel safe with. It's all about safety. Take a break. The overworking thing, right? Take a break. Even if you have something big going on and you need a minute, take a minute. Because oftentimes, like when I was putting together this webinar the other day, I got to a point where I was like, oh my God, I'm so stressed. I took a break. When I came back to it, my head was so much clearer, right? So take breaks. They're good. They're positive for us. Sleep. We already talked about that one, right? Sleep is necessary. You can't function without sleep. And I feel like we've come to a place in our society where we're like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. You'll be dead. You need to sleep. Start putting yourself first. Start believing and knowing that you deserve to feel good every day and that you deserve some time and some attention from yourself. Okay, exercise. We all know this. We all know why we need to exercise. I can tell you, I feel a lot better going through my day when I exercise versus when I don't. I'm sure you guys all know that. Making sure we're nourishing our bodies properly. It's okay to eat a donut, but just make sure at some point you're eating something green, right? Food can go very positive and very negative. We don't want to get obsessed over only eating healthy foods. We want to be able to enjoy it, but we want to nourish our bodies and give it what it needs in order to feel good, in order to run well. Like if I put crap gas in my car, that's the result I'm going to get, right? So you need both. Forgiving others, that's a huge one. We usually carry so much resentment towards other people, and the only person we're hurting with that is ourselves, right? When I talk about forgiveness, I'm not oftentimes we don't need to forgive for the other person. We need to forgive for us. I often say anger only hurts the container in which it resides, right? And then let's talk about the self-hatred a lot of us carry towards self. That's a big one. We need to start forgiving ourselves more. We need to start letting things go. We need to start allowing ourselves the same grace that we give to others. Asking for help, one of the hardest things a lot of us can do. Oh, sorry, I went back to, there we go. It's one of the hardest things we can do is ask for help, at least for some of us. I have a really hard time asking for help. But also, it allows other people to do things for us, and they feel more connected to us when they can help us. So don't rob other people of that, and also don't rob yourself of it. You are deserving as well. So we're going to talk today a lot about the skill-based coping strategies. We're going to practice them. Skill-based coping strategies are things, the more you do, the better you get at them, the better you feel. So first couple times trying them, you might be like, that didn't work. But you got to train your nervous system on what to do when you do these things. Okay. It's just like you get on the bike, you fall, you get on the bike, you fall. All of a sudden, over time, after lots of practice, your body learns how to ride the bike, right? You put the bike down, you don't do it for 5 years, you can still get on and ride the bike. You've trained your nervous system. So practice these things. If one of the ones we did today feels good to you, practice it. Continue to practice it as much as you can, but not the over that we were talking about, not the pendulum swing, but try to get it into your day and your daily routine. If none of these resonate with you, there's thousands of them out there. So go out there and do the research and find something that works for you. And boundaries, which is where we are going next. And again, I know there's a lot of people on here today that know me that have heard me talk about this billions of times. I really think, especially for those of us that have a hard time putting ourselves first, this is where we start. Oh, before we move on though, anybody have any others that they want to add to the adaptive coping strategy list? Anything you guys are doing well that you're proud of, or ideas for others? Journaling and crafting. Yep. Mhm. Journaling can get everything out, right? It actually allows your brain to process some of these emotions in a different part of your brain, so you can actually process it faster. But crafting, absolutely, it gets you out of that. It like shuts down the area of your brain that worries. Okay, it doesn't actually allow you to. It's a mindfulness activity, which we're going to talk about. Creative arts, painting, meditation, yeah, journaling. Another praise for the journaling. Absolutely. All of those things are very, very important. So we're going to talk about boundaries. And I want to then also just mention that what I was just talking about for a second, when we get to mindfulness activities we're going to practice today, we're going to learn about those shut down that fight or flight. Okay. All of the meditation, the mindfulness activities, breathing, they're like switches that will turn off the fight or flight. Your nervous system really only has two settings. It's on or off. So those kinds of things are evidence-based, which means science has proven that it shuts it off, right? So it's only going to shut it off while you're doing it in the beginning, but the more you do it, the longer you benefit you will get from it. So, okay, so now on to my favorite topic, which is boundaries. So what is a boundary, right? When we think about a boundary, what is it? Because sometimes I think we throw these terms around and this has become sort of like a catchphrase. It's spoken about all the time, but nobody really understands what it means. So in life, a boundary is a point or limit that indicates where two things become different. So it separates you from me. It separates my yard from your yard. A fence is a boundary, right? Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my voice. They're unofficial rules about what should and should not be done, right? So you're standing in Starbucks, you're waiting in line. Well, none of us really wait in line anymore because we have the app, right? But old school days, you're waiting in line and the person behind you, all of a sudden, you can feel them breathing on the back of your neck. And what do? You immediately tense up and you start to get irritated because they've crossed your boundary. We have unofficial rules in our society of how we're supposed to behave. When somebody is that close to me, right? They're breaking that rule and it makes me mad, right? So these aren't laws. These are just unofficial rules that we all tend to follow, and most of us know of how we're supposed to behave in our society, right? And by the way, in different cultures, that bubble is a different size. So there are some cultures that are more comfortable with being close, and there are some more cultures that want to be even further away, right? So there are limits that define acceptable behavior. Okay, we all know what these are. Okay, so next, when we set boundaries, what we're doing is we are telling the other person, this is my fence. Okay, I don't want you to cross it. You have to, or not you have to, I need you to honor this. I need you to honor my space. I don't want you coming closer than this, right? Some of the boundaries I've heard over the years, um, curfews with kids, right? This is a boundary that we're setting. I don't, and my son and I go through this all the time. Tonight, I'm tired. I want you home by 11:30. That's my boundary. I want to go to bed, right? Um, how, if I've had some people that with their spouses who might be using substances say, if you're not home by a certain time, I'm locking the door because I have to set that boundary, right? So these are boundaries that we need to set. We need to tell other people how to behave. I don't want you to come to call me past 9, right? That was one when I was a kid. That was really hard, fast rule in my house. My phone doesn't ring past 9. Boundary, right? So one of the things I want to mention is that when we're setting boundaries, we want to do this with love, right? We don't want to do it in the moment, because what we typically do is when we're setting a boundary with somebody, we do it when we're angry. So we do it in the middle of a fight. So in the middle of a fight, we start telling them what we're not going to accept anymore. But when you're arguing with somebody, nobody's really listening. It's really not a good time to set boundaries. So I'd encourage you to take some space if you're arguing with somebody you care about, or somebody at work. Take some space and go think about what you need, and then figure out what boundaries you need to set. Okay. And do it with compassion, right? Because you're changing up a dynamic with someone else. If I have never told my son I want him home at a certain time, and all of a sudden I'm mad at him one night because he came home at 12:30, I never set a boundary, and I start yelling at him and I'm like, you're home by 11:30 from now on, right? That doesn't, it doesn't, it's not going to land well. So instead, coming back to him after and saying, bud, can we sit and talk? Um, I think I need you home a little earlier. Like and this is why, because this is how it's affecting me. It's not a I'm trying to punish you thing. Okay. It's this is how it's affecting me. Okay. And just as a caveat to that, he's going to want to push against that because he liked the way it was before. So when we set boundaries with somebody who we have had a lack of boundaries with, we have to expect them to push against it. Oftentimes I'll have people come back to me and be like, hey, Kristen, this isn't working. It's gotten worse. And I'm always like, yep. Actually, now I always tell people that it will get worse first, but it gets worse before it gets better, because the other person is going to want to push back because they liked your lack of boundaries. It's much easier to set boundaries at the beginning of a relationship than it is to add in boundaries after a lack of one. Okay. So, and that person oftentimes is going to take it as a punishment instead of a boundary, which is where the compassion comes in. I want you to expect it because they might even feel hurt about your boundary. Right. So, like if I have a friend that calls me every day to vent, and all of a sudden one day I'm like, listen, I love you, but I can't do this anymore. Like I'm stressed. I need you to pick like a day of the week that I can be there for you in that way. But I can't do this every day anymore because it's becoming negative to my mental health. I have to expect she's going to have a reaction to that. Right. So, what we want to do with this is use compassion for the reasons I just said, set clear limits in advance. That's the conversation. You're not doing this in the middle of an argument. You're having a well thought out conversation where you're setting your limits and telling them what you need. Allow for natural consequences to occur. So that's kind of more like their reaction to your boundary is not your problem. It's not yours to own. Okay. And if they get mad, that's for them to manage. Okay. Take some space if you don't have an immediate answer. So if they come back to you and they're pushing against your boundary and they don't like it and they don't want it, and you feel like you have to answer them in the moment, happens a lot with teenagers, happens a lot with people who have substance use disorder. Take some space. Don't feel like you have to immediately give them an answer. Tell them, "I'm gonna think about that. I'll get back to you on it. I really need some time alone in my head." Okay? And the other thing is also mention to them that you're doing this because you love them. When I love somebody enough to set a boundary, that means I'm trying to protect the relationship because I don't want to have to walk away. Okay? I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. I only set boundaries with the people that mean a lot to me because it's a hard thing to do. So if I'm setting a boundary, I'm doing it to preserve the relationship because the lack of boundaries is going to lead to me eventually wanting to distance myself, right? So make sure you're clear about that. Be aware of your own needs while these conversations are taking place, and then spend some time reflecting. Think about how it went. Think about what you might be able to do differently. Think what else you might need. This is a great space. This is great things to do in therapy, by the way, obviously. So if you feel like you're struggling, this is something therapists really do pretty well. It's a gold standard in my industry. So if you need help, go find a therapist. What we want to try to avoid, which we've all done, blaming and shaming. I've gotten mad a lot at people over the course of my life and said things that I wish I didn't say. Using anger as a catalyst. That's what I was talking about earlier. In the middle of an argument, you're using that in order to fire back at the person. This is another really important one. Don't set a limit you are unable to hold. So if you set the curfew with your adolescent and then you're not going to hold them to that standard, okay, don't set that. Find something else that you can set in the meantime. This happens a lot with people who are struggling with a loved one with substance use disorder. They'll threaten to leave or kick them out, and they're not ready to do that yet. So when we don't follow through on a boundary that's set, we're teaching the other person that they don't need to follow our boundaries, that our boundaries don't really matter. Okay. So make sure, think this through before you set a boundary. Make sure you're willing to hold it and able to hold it. And if not, find one that's maybe not so extreme, something in the middle. Don't succumb to the pressure of immediate gratification. We already talked about that. And don't tolerate any abuse of any kind. People get really upset when we start setting boundaries, really upset, and they can become abusive. So don't tolerate that. You deserve better. Okay. So next, how do we protect our boundaries? Be aware of your own needs, be aware of your own comfort zone, turn off your phone and don't answer the door, use time and space. Remember, it's okay for others to sit in the anxiety of not knowing your answer. Okay, never forget that. I'm moving kind of slow, so I'm going to have to speed up a little bit, you guys. I apologize. So if you have any questions at the end, please feel free to ask them. I can stay on as pretty much as long as I need to answer them all, but I'm going to start moving a little quicker. So when setting boundaries, it's your responsibility to set your boundary and hold it firm. Oftentimes we get mad because other people don't respect our boundaries. They should respect our boundaries, absolutely. But remember the serenity prayer? We can't control them, right? So I want your boundary to be your job because you can control that. So instead of saying it and expecting them to follow it, I want you to continue to set it and continue to maintain it. Okay, that is your job in boundary setting. It's not theirs. And then if they never respect your boundary, then you got to consider whether or not this is somebody you want in your life right now. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the coping skills. Okay, what's a coping skill? Psychological mechanisms consciously utilized to solve personal and interpersonal problems in order to try to master, minimize, or tolerate stress and conflict. Basically, it's something that helps us live our lives better. It helps us manage our stress, and it helps us to be able to turn off our nervous systems when they're overacting. Okay, so we're going to practice these now. First one we're going to talk about is mindfulness. Okay, mindfulness is when we are doing something that makes us present in the moment, okay, where we're connected to this moment right here. We're not living in the past and we're not living in the future. We're living in today. And oftentimes, if we do a skill-based thing or we're doing something we have to focus on, it can help us do that. I just want to also point out depression lives in the past, anxiety lives in the future. The only place you can be happy is today. Mindfulness can help you get there. Okay, so mindfulness activities, coloring, yoga, being one with nature, smelling flowers, body scan, laying down, checking in with every single area of your body with your eyes closed, okay? Just feeling whatever you feel. Eating can be a mindfulness activity. Only though if you're sitting and you're taking a bite and you're really paying attention to how it tastes, okay? Not, what we do when we only have 15 minutes for lunch, but really enjoying something, really noticing it. Bathing, baths are my thing. I love baths. So now we're going to participate or we're going to practice a mindfulness activity. It's 5 things. I'm sure some of you have heard of this before. You might have even practiced it. So what we're going to do is you're going to say out loud or in your head, whatever you're comfortable with. I can't hear you. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly. I'll say it with you. And then in your head or out loud, I want you to name one thing you can taste. And this can be something you can taste right now or something that you know you can taste, okay, that at some point you can taste. Name 2 things you can smell, 3 things you can feel, 4 things you can hear. Close your eyes and listen and see if you can hear any in your environment right now, okay? And 5 things you can see. We're going to take just a few minutes. I'm probably going to move a little bit faster than what you want, but please come back and practice this. It's a great exercise to shut off that fight or flight, okay? So here we go. 1, 2, 3. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Name one thing you can taste. Name 2 things you can smell. Name 3 things you can feel. Close your eyes. Name 4 things you can hear. And now name 5 things you can see. Okay, now come back. Hopefully, your mind's a little clearer right now. It really does help to bring that anxiety level down, and you can do this as many times as you need to. Okay, next one, we're going to do a breathing exercise. My favorite, the breath is directly linked to your nervous system. So we can use our breath to calm our mind. Science, again, okay, this is science that's proven this. One of the ones I love the best, it's easy to access. You can do it anywhere. Well, not anywhere, but you can always relieve yourself, go to the bathroom and do it there if you're out in public. And you can do it as many times as you need to. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep breath in through our nose. Not right now. I'm going to go through it first. Take a deep breath in through our nose. And as we're taking that deep breath in, we are going to notice the tension, stress, negativity, whatever you want to call it in your body, wherever that is. And I want you to picture it all pooling into your stomach with the air. Okay, so you're going to draw in all of that negative energy. It's all going to pool into your stomach. You're going to hold it at the top for a second, and then you're going to breathe out. Okay, so we're going to go through this once. Typically, I tell people 3 times, and then check in with yourself and see how you feel. And if you feel pretty good, go on with your day. If you need more, do more. Okay, so here we go. In through the nose. Picture all of that energy pulling in with that air. It's all pulling into your stomach. You're going to hold it all for a second. And now you're going to blow it all out your mouth. Okay, and by the way, the slower the breath out, the more of a reduction in anxiety you should feel. That's what controls the anxiety. Okay, so please practice that if it resonates with you. I've had a lot of people that have really good luck with it. Again, though, the more you do it, the more you get out of it, right? Once your nervous system learns that breathing means a calm nervous system, after years of practice, sometimes you can even think about doing it and have a calmer nervous system. But that takes a lot of practice, like riding a bike. Okay, last but not least, I got to pull up my meditation music here. We are going to do a meditation. Hold on one second. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear this. If you can't, I apologize. Yeah, okay. I'm not sure if you guys can hear this or not. It is playing. It can be really tough sometimes to hear, but we're going to start. Okay, so allowing yourself a few minutes of positive reflection can change the course of your day. I want you to move into a comfortable position. This can be sitting or laying down, whatever is most comfortable for you. Face your palms up towards the sky. Now take a moment to settle in.
Now, take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it for a second at the top. Now exhale through your mouth slowly. And take in another deep breath. Feel the air expanding your body. I want you to notice any stress, where it is in your body, in your limbs. Inhale that stress in with the air. Now let it all go. Let's take one more deep breath in. Let all of the negativity pull into that air. Exhale it all in. Now just breathe normally. Notice your body relaxing. Release any negative energy with each exhale. Now picture a warm, loving light approaching you from above. Allow it in through the crown of your head. As it fills up your body, it's pushing away any leftover negativity. It's filling you with feelings of love and warmth. Allow the magnificent light to fill every crevice of your body. Know you are one of a kind. You are a miracle. You are a gift to yourself and this world. You are worthy of love. Say either out loud or in your head, whatever you're more comfortable with. I am willing to love myself fully today. I accept myself for everything I am. Continue to breathe easily and gently. I accept myself for everything I am. I love myself fully. Now relax into the experience of just being you. Free to love and be loved without judgment. Take a deep breath in through your nose Exhale through your mouth with a sigh. Take one more deep breath and let it all out. Now slowly come back. You can take your time coming back to the world around you. When you're ready, open your eyes.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope that was an enjoyable experience for you. I hope at least one of those three skills that we practiced resonated with you, and you might take it with you into the world in the days ahead. I thank you so much for being here with me today. I have a couple more slides that are more constructive, just about who we are, what we do, and contact information. And while I go through those, if there are any questions for me, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Just to finish off today, the start of self-love is self-honesty. Typically, when we're not being truthful, it's more for ourselves than it is for anybody else. So be honest with yourselves, and that's really the first step to loving yourself, which is the goal. So what we do here at Herren Project, we have treatment and recovery services, family support services, prevention and wellness, and Team Herren Project. We offer a lot of different things. I think we're pretty amazing myself. So please, if you're interested in more info, go to our website, herrenproject.org. I also have to mention our sister programs, Herren Talks, that I'm sure a lot of you have heard or maybe heard him or heard about Chris traveling around the country talking in school systems and various other locations about really his story, but about how to be you, which is on my shirt today. It's amazing. He also has The First Day, which is a documentary, which is his talk. It's amazing. That you can find information about his speaking on Herren Talks. You can find information about the First Day film at thefirstday.com. And then, of course, there's also the Wellness Center, Herren Wellness in Seekonk, Mass. It's a wellness approach to substance use disorder and mental health. Also another amazing program. Please check that out. I believe that's herrenwellness.com. So look us up. Chris has a lot of amazing things going on. And I'd love to have you all be a part of our community, even more so than you are. Here is the contact information for Herren Project. I should have put my email up here too. I didn't. This is an old slide. My email is Kristen, Kristin, at Herren Project, HERREN, project.org. Again, Kristen with an I, at herrenproject.org. If you have any questions of me, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer questions that you have about us or about anything I talked about today in this webinar. Don't forget about the other webinars in the series either, guys. Look them up. Okay, so now what do we got? We have, I'm sorry, can I turn it up a little? Yeah, I was up all the way. I missed that. I couldn't turn it up. I'm sorry if you guys couldn't hear it. I tried. It wasn't, the music might have been soft. You're welcome, Nelson. Firstday.com. Herren Project, can you put the First Day website in the chat, Delaney, for me? That would be awesome. I would greatly appreciate it. Sorry, Katrina. Hopefully Delaney can put that in the chat for you here, so you have that website. You can also Google First Day Film and it should show up. Actually, I think that's why. I think it's firstdayfilm.com. That was my bad. Thanks for a wonderful webinar, Kristen, and thank you to HP for all you do in putting the Wellness Week. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Kevin. You are welcome, Erica. They're coming in fast and hot. You're welcome, Cindy. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you for putting that in there for me. Herren Project. Thank you, Kate. Thanks, Pam. I love you too. And I think that's it. So unless there's any other questions, I can't believe I actually ended this pretty much on time. I was nervous there. I didn't think I was gonna get there. So anyways, thank you all for being here today. I greatly appreciate it, and go check out the rest of the things we have for the next 2 days left of Wellness Week. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. It's also a lot of really cool stuff up on our social media and on our YouTube channel. So thank you very much, and I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope this calmed you a little before you go back into the world.